Okay, hello everyone. How are you all today?
Excellent.
Good, good. So welcome everybody. Let me just see how many people we have started here already today. And we've got quite a few people here. I usually like to wait a few minutes before we start the webinar, just to make sure that everybody who is joining is getting a chance to get settled in. Let me just see who we have here. Oh, excellent. Okay, so we've got quite a few people joining already. I'll just wait another few minutes. We've got Jill, we've got Harry. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stephen. So we've got a really exciting group of guests today. I can't wait to introduce everybody. Some longtime friends of myself, and people I've always looked up to in the industry. So I'm excited to have everybody on the call today. So just a format for those of you who joined already, we're going to be about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, just having a discussion. And then we'll have a Q&A period at the end of it. And then if you hold on to the end, we do have an exciting giveaway to present at the end of the call. And we'll be giving it away today for the people who are in this group in the webinar today. What time are we now? All right, so we'll wait another minute or two and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm just going to proceed because I'm super impatient and that felt like 3 minutes to me, but it was only 30 seconds. All right, so hi everyone, my name is Tim Howard. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Vish, and I work closely with all salons, and some of you I know in the webinar already, working on the onboarding side of Vish and meeting with salons, reviewing their data, and just making sure that they're getting the most out of Vish every day in their locations and their salons. As I said earlier, this panel that we have today are some of the great mentors, great leaders in our industry. Everybody on this panel today I actually work with on a regular basis or have worked with in the past. I'll start with Heath Smith, who owns co-owner of 2 salons in Austin, Texas, Ruiz salons. And Heath and I have worked together for many, many years back in my day with Aveda. And Heath has done a lot of great coaching, runs 2 very efficient, successful salons, has great education in his salons, and he's got a lot of important information to share. And Heath, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, I'm happy to be here, but I will tell you, when you get to Lupe, don't stress how long you've known her. It's okay. Just say a couple of years. A couple of years will do, okay, Tim?
I always say more than 10. It gives you credibility, but doesn't give away your doesn't age you.
Anyway, good morning.
And so we'll move right to Lupe, who I've known for about 6 months. Lupe is new to the industry. She just graduated out of beauty school. But Lupe has been a mentor, again, of mine for many years and somebody I've really enjoyed working with. We've done various shows and classes together. Lupe's developed some amazing curriculum, has Color Space, which is her newest project. Also, Hair Color Magic has been a staple in the industry for education, helping colorists really understand and become masters at what they do. But I'll let Lupe continue the introduction herself.
Yeah, was a salon owner for 33 years, Julian August Salon, and during COVID, I made a really strong decision to go forward with being a co-founder for Color Space. So I did give the salon to one of my team members who I coach and who is doing really well. Been doing hair for 40 years now. Isn't that crazy? 40 years, yeah. Wow. So I write curriculum, I train, I teach. I have a pulse on what's happening with all of the industry as far as getting them ready and successful behind the chair.
Excellent. And last but not least, Allison King, who owns 2 salons in New York, Hair & Co. Brooklyn, sorry, Allison, and also is a coach, a mentor in the industry, a business coach, and we work closely together at times at Vish on various projects and some advising and leadership roles within our company. And Allison, if you want to add to that, please.
Thank you, Tim. And for everybody on, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I think, you know, the reality for us and what we do, we have 2 salons here in Brooklyn, New York. We also have a consulting business, and I'm excited to be part of the giveaway today. And, you know, our mission has really just to, not only in supporting our team, but in salon owners across the country, to help them navigate the current environment and to do things that allow technology to help make them more profitable. And that's really been our wheelhouse over the last couple of years, to really accelerate our profits and really get really smart about our business, so that we can come through these last couple of years and what's ahead of us in bigger, better, and stronger.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Again, I'm really happy to have everybody on this call. It's a great way to start the new year. You know, I'd like to, do these as often as possible and really kind of bring great leadership and have great topics for the, anybody who uses Vish, but also anybody who hasn't used Vish. We're more than happy to have you join our webinars. So topics that we want to cover today. So we're going to start with lessons we learned in 2021 that we can keep moving forward. So all the great things that we learned during one of the most difficult years in our industry, what we've taken from that and how we can bring them into the next year, into this year, and make some improvements to our businesses. We're also going to follow how salon owners can set themselves up for success in 2022, core trends to set your education plans. We're going to talk about some of the trends that you're seeing and how you can educate your teams accordingly, and then tools that you're using for effective consultations. So I'd love to really open that up, because I know a lot of salons need some guidance and some support in the way that they're doing the consultations. And perhaps maybe there's some new tools that we're using in the industry to assist and to work with those consultations. So if you could just talk about your background, Heath, I would like to start with you. Just kind of give a background to where you've been in the industry, what you've done, some of the successes you've had and what you've learned over the, over the course of your salon ownership and coaching years.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so as Tim said, I'm a co-founder of Ruiz Salons in Austin, Texas, and that, I believe we opened in 1998, so it's been a minute. And we've been super successful in this market, and probably, 5 years into the ownership of our salons, I was at this pivotal place and was trying to decide, is there an MBA in my future for, business degree, or should I just throw myself into sort of the structure business-wise into our industry. Before we opened our salons, I had no beauty background. So everything I've learned about the beauty industry, I've learned through walking in these shoes as a salon owner. And it's an interesting story. I had a mentor who is a developer here in Austin and has had an MBA, and he just said, why would you pursue a degree in business when you're already doing what a lot of people go to school to do? And that kind of like snapped me out of kind of my dream of having an MBA, because I was then looking at my business and saying, okay, well, where can I really just dig in? Where can I dig in and be better doing what I already am doing without the distraction of pursuing an advanced degree? So I went through a consulting training program within the industry, and I've been doing that for about 15 years in addition to owning our salons. And so I currently work with a really great industry group called Cunity, and they're a coaching and consulting and education company within the beauty industry. And I do a lot of consulting and work with them. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I will tell you, Tim, starting in probably April or May of 2020, when kind of the wheels were blown off of this industry, that's really where I kind of counted my blessings of having the professional network with resources like Vish, really great distributor partners, really great manufacturer partners, and such a wide and deep relationship in the industry, because information at that time was so scarce on how to maneuver and be a business person when it was the climate we were all operating in was just absolutely upside down. So anyway, that's kind of a background for me. So I just wanted to say, number one, thanks to Vish for the last 2 years. You guys have been instrumental in a lot of really great information, reaching the broader parts of our industry. So I just really want to say thanks. And it has been a really great 2 years of technology. And I hope we could talk a little bit more about that, of how we've all leaned into that.
Fantastic. That's great, Heath. Thank you. And, also thank you, because, a lot of the times, we look to salons, and Heath is one of the people that we go to when we're just looking to, kind of bounce new ideas off new products. And Heath always gives us some great insight and some great feedback. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So Lupe, we'll go to you next, and just maybe dive into your background a little bit more. And maybe even focus on, what sort of things you've got lying ahead for you in 2022 as well, because I know you've got a lot of exciting changes in your life and in your business life.
Yeah, it was really interesting when we were talking of going through some of the information with you when we met. It's interesting someone had asked me if this is something that I wanted to do in my life, that I always thought I was going to be a fighter pilot. I had no idea I was going to go into the hair industry. So I don't know. So I thought I was going to be military. Going through having the salon, having great people, networking and understanding how to run the business was a lot of fun. Going into the teaching aspect of it was one step further, where growing our network. And I found going into salons, like going into Heath Salon and training with their teams, and even with your team, it was something that fed me even more. So having the salon was really great. And I realized really quickly that it wasn't just to focus on clients, which we do as a salon owner, but it's almost like this is the one thing that I really took back and found that education was a big piece of that. Was, when you go on the airplane and they're going through the whole thing, the windows, and then that thing drops down, if the pressure is gone, and it tells you, they tell you, put the mask on you first and then help whoever you're with. And I was sitting down thinking one day, because I was focused so much on the clients and I was focused so much on making money. And I was like, that's the salon. I got to make sure the mask is on the salon so that it can do the rest. So I figured that out really quickly, and then realized all the aspects of what we do. And the education piece was what really stuck, because we're growing individuals. And that's something that I really felt excited about. So that's what the lane that I went into was on the education segment. So for 25 years, that's what I did, is I really focused on the education piece. And then for 2022, not having the actual salon, I still do hair. I go in and I do hair, because I do believe if I'm going to teach, I have to actually physically do it. For 2022, focusing on color space now. We have a startup hair color company, Color Space, and really focusing. My role is to make sure that the salons get what they need in order for them to be successful. And again, that oxygen mask, I want to make sure that the salon is set up for that. And education is a huge piece, and we'll go into that when we talk about trends, but it is a huge piece to develop your team and to do it the right way, and to be supportive to salon owners. That's what I'm really going to focus on. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. And for those of you who haven't taken a class with Lupe, I did personally, after being in the industry for many years. I took Hair Color Magic with Lupe many, many years ago, but I'd been in the industry probably about 15 years or maybe more at that point. And things that I thought I knew about hair color really just came to, when I did Lupe's class, I realized then another level of understanding hair color which after a 1-day class made me a better hair colorist immediately. And I've continued to build and grow on that ever since. And it was probably one of the most, if not the most valuable class I've ever taken. And I'm not just saying that because Lupe's in the room, because I don't mind making digs at her and being rude. So thank you again, Lupe.
Didn't you cry? I think at one point I saw you crying in the corner.
I never cried, Lupe.
Oh my gosh. Tim, how long have you known Lupe?
Oh man, geez, since I was a kid and Lupe was in her 40s. And again, Allison, same sort of deeper dive into what you're doing, what this next year brings for you, and then a deeper dive into your background as well would be super great. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to make this a little easy because I have a 14-year-old daughter named Sydney. And one day she had the realization, Mom, you can find everything you need to know about you on Google. So feel free to Google me, but I'll give you the 2-minute spiel. I've been in this industry since I was 14. I will not tell you how old I am now. I had a VOTEC program where I got my cosmetology license. I actually do have an MBA. And I spent most of my life running some of the industry's largest chain salons. And after a long time on the corporate ladder, I really got tired of accountants and lawyers. My apologies if you're an accountant and lawyer, and missed being on the front line with the teams. And so I jumped up the corporate ladder. We opened 2 salons here in Brooklyn with my husband, Shannon King. And I've spent the last 6 years as the preferred provider for business education and one-on-one salon consulting for the Cal Salon division in our company, Beauty 360 Consulting. And so what I spend most of my time doing is really working with salon owners on what's on their mind. Right. And while we have a process for how we coach, it's very individualized and customized for the person that we're coaching. And we really spend time building custom systems that fit their vibe and their tribe. And that's what we spend most of our time doing. And so really the last 2 years, it's been learning how to navigate and be ahead of what we have in front of us with this pandemic, learning how to come through it profitably, learning how to navigate all the governmental fun we've had in the last 2 years. And I feel a little bit like I work for the CDC because I've got those guidelines down like that at this point. But just super proudly being able to say that the entire group of salons that we consult made it through the pandemic successfully and profitably. And again, like I said earlier, my mission is to take salons and help them be bigger, better, and different in a way that works for them. And so my antics are a little unconventional, but at the same token, I can joke that I've done every job in the salon now, literally from shampoo girl to CEO of a 1,200 unit salon chain. And so I think I come from a little bit different perspective and really help make numbers fun for people and things like that. So it's kind of what I've been up to. And we are proud lovers of Vish. As I joke on a daily basis when I talk to people, thank you for the extra $43,000 a year per location for parts and labor. So if you've got any questions on that, it was a beautiful thing coming out of the pandemic. So thank you.
Pleasure. And it's been a pleasure, Allison. I got to say, working with you last year. Again, we use, with Vish, Allison gives us a lot of mentoring and leadership, and helps us do some planning as well for things to come with Vish. So I'm very excited to have everybody here. But let's before we get too far into it, before we get into our plans for 2022, let's take a look back at 2021 and think about the lessons that we can take from last year. A lot of us thought that, we would, there is a potential or possibility, more so, I'm in Canada, so more so in Canada, I think, than the US, but there definitely was a fear of more restrictions and more lockdowns happening. Mm-hmm. So if we look back, what was one thing that you learned from 2021 that you're going to be taking into 2022? So something maybe that you changed in your business, a new way of doing something, or even just maybe a different perspective. And then also I want to add to that, so we can get into that, and whoever wants to start off and take that. But also, we've talked about technology a little bit, so I want to make sure we discuss that as well. That I know we leaned into some technology a little bit more in 2021. How did that help us, and what were some of those benefits? So if anybody wants to take that, again, just kind of talking about what you did in 2021, what you learned, what you implemented, and then what you'll be moving forward into this year that was successful for you.
I'll take the lead on that one since I guess I volunteered first. I think there were two things that resonate for me, and I'm going to leave the third because I think Heath will bring up that third. I think there were a couple things. One, we really took an opportunity to get back to basics, right? With all the restrictions we had, we're in Brooklyn, New York. So, unless you're in LA, we had the most restrictions in the US. And so we had to really learn not to be the same salon we were before we closed, but to kind of come out as a new version of ourselves. And what we learned as we navigated through that is because we couldn't double book, because we could only be at 50% capacity, we had to really get really good at our consultations and maximizing our time and making sure we could get the most out of each customer without doing the Oprah makeover so she wouldn't be back for another 6 months, right? And so what we learned in that is to be very diligent with the questions that we asked, to be very diligent with planning their hair journey, not just focused on this visit. And we also started to look at some things around all-in pricing, where now we weren't nickel and diming them for stuff. There was one price if they're getting a highlight, there's one price, everything's included in it. Now, there was no deal. We didn't lower our prices. We just made it what it was going to cost. But in doing that, we took all the decisions out for the client. So they just had to focus on the outcome they wanted. And through those tactics, we were able to increase our average ticket by over $50 and maintain it.
Wow, that's impressive.
And so it was really just, what's one or two things we're going to do really well and just stay there until we nail it. That was one thing that I think resonated for us and how good we can be when we don't get distracted. And we're going to take that into this year.
Fantastic. And Heath, you got a little cue from Allison there. So something that you want to add to that, or some topic you want to cover?
Yeah, no, I love that, Allison. Absolutely. We found a little bit of that. We went down a road where things like some of the add-on menu items like toners and pulling from roots to end, a lot of that we went back just for the sake of simplicity and added to every one of our balayages, added to every one of just very specific services. And I'm going to explore that more. Yeah, I think what you were talking about, Allison, jump in if I'm not finding the exact cue, but kind of our dialogue pre this workshop was, we were talking about kind of where we were finding ourselves in 2020, 2021, and where we're going to go into 2022. And one of the kind of the highlights for me is anytime you have so much craziness and chaos going around, that was kind of a silver lining with the pandemic for our businesses, is we found our teams and our clients way more susceptible to change, way more interested in going down the road with us. And I laugh when I say this, 15 years ago, we tried to use QR codes for holiday and do mirror talkers, but clients weren't having it. They were just like, no, I'm not using that. And then also, we tried to do FaceTime and Google Hangouts, and doing that maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago for consultations for color. Clients weren't having that. So I found the last year and a half, clients have been way more interested in using some of the technology. Our booking online is through the roof right now, continues to be so. We're doing all of our consultations are virtual. QR codes are on our front door, the side windows, on our stations. We're using those in multiple ways. We're using a lot of really great technology for forms that we get in advance, very similar to like your optometrist or your medical doctor. Collecting as much information through technology as we can, so that when the client actually walks in, we're not spending time getting to know them. We've got a ton of information base to work off of. So that would be what I say, that we're looking for more and more opportunities to do that in 2022, because it's made us a lot more efficient. We're able to schedule at least one less guest care team member per day, because we're leaning into technology as much as we are. The other thing I think that we should not overlook that is still such a place for us to maximize is how trustful our teams were. And the minute a lot of business owners had to really step up and say, if not me, who? I'm obviously the one in charge. I'm obviously the one that has to make these decisions. And a lot of business owners fully stepped into that role. And what do you know? People followed. And I think that that's something that's really probably easy to dismiss, but that's not the normal operating structure in a lot of small businesses. The leaders are usually they only show up when things get really hard. But what would it look like if we stepped into that role all of the time, 100% of our day as the leaders, and our team was following us? My gosh, we would be doing $50 average ticket increases every other week, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that there's a leadership dynamic that I'm still trying to process and put my finger on, how many yeses I got from a very surprising audience. And I'm not just talking about my team, but I'm talking about customers. And there's just a very interesting fundamental shift in relationship that I don't want to lose, because we've had a lot of kind of the shackles taken off of us, and we've got more people being sort of in a place of following and supportive, that I just don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great, Heath. There's a point I want to come back to in a little bit when we talk about consultations that I know our salons will want to know. But that was great. Thank you so much. And how about for you, Lupe? Looking back from 2020, 2021 into, because you've done a big shift, right? You've got out of your salon, you've started a hair color company. What are some of the things that you learned that you're going to take forward into this year?
Well, I learned that, to Allison's point, everything that I found that I would have to do from here on out, because of, it is a very different, our industry has changed so much, is to be deliberate. Like when we are together and we are discussing things, be deliberate on what the outcome is before we could try things out, where we have to make sure that we are doing something that is going to benefit the salon. And this is something that I've always had. Whenever there were decisions that had to be made, the first and foremost, is it good for the salon? Whatever decision that is being made, again, that air thing, is it good for the salon? Next, is it good for your team? Because your team is the one, if they're happy, if mama's happy, everyone's happy. So the team has to be happy. And then last, is it good for the client? Are your consumers, are your customers going to be happy? So that is something that I found doing what I'm doing now, changing into a different role, but still thinking about education, because it's always going to be front and foremost is the education piece. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I wrote a thesis. I was invited to write a paper, which I never thought that I would ever be able to do something like that, for one. But it was called It's More Than a Tube of Color. And it was the study of the colorist relationship to the hair color. And I'm not talking about I'm talking about all brands. Think about whatever brand that everyone that's on this webinar is using. The connection that your team has with their hair color, then the connection your team has with their client, their consumer, the person that's sitting in the chair, and then the connection the consumer has with their hair color. Like, how do they see themselves? Who do they think they are? And the number one thing about it comes back to is performance. So we are able to pivot. That's the number one thing for me, is learning how to pivot, because I'm not a very, it sounds weird, but like it's either, are you pivoting the Titanic or are you flipping around on a dime? Like, what is it? And the decisions that you have to make, again, have to be good for the salon, good for the team, and good for the consumer. And then everything that has to work as far as hair color or as far as education piece is performance. So that's what I've learned. And that's what I've been focusing on. Yeah. And giving that everything, so that when we write the curriculum, so that when we start doing this education, everything that we're basing education on, that's the foundation piece. Performance and being deliberate about how we're doing it.
That's great. Lupe, where did this thesis, is it available? How can readers, have you published this?
Yeah, it's published. I'll actually send you the link and then you can share it.
Okay.
And we were
absolutely.
We were invited to expand on it. So it's being peer reviewed and it's going to be in, I know if you ever told me, I was like, I read like Harry Potter. Okay. Yeah. So I'll send you the link and then I'll send you the revised,
That's great. And if anybody on the call wants to have access to it, just let us know, and we'd be happy to share that with you as well when Lupe shares it with us.
Yeah, we did a presentation for Innocohere, so I can send that link as well.
That'd be great. I'd love to read that.
What I was thinking is, if we just looked at our businesses and looked wherever we got the traction that we wanted, or those surprise results, or you probably could boil that down to 5 key things that you did differently. And I say you as the salon owner network, look at where you really were successful. And I guarantee you that there's something that you did foundationally different with your clients and with your team under those types of situations and that pressure that you could continue to capitalize on. There's no secret in a lot of leadership. Most of the time, the relationship structure is super simple. It's just we get in our own ways. So I think if we all just looked at where we got really great results, you could probably boil it down to a couple, 2, 3, 4 themes, and continue to use those because they're working for us, right?
They are. And it's funny. I mean, I meet with many salons over the course of the last 2 years. And not everybody got stronger, right? There's a lot of salons that lost their teams, that didn't have that follow that you were talking about, Heath. And, for various reasons. But I think one of the biggest reasons that salons stay successful is because of education. Right. So I would like to, and I know, Heath, I know the level of education that you deliver, and I know, Allison, same with you in your salon. And of course, Lupe, the great education that you deliver. But we need to be able to adapt to change. And part of that change is education. So if we discuss right now, I'd like to kind of have a few minutes and we discuss virtual training versus in-person training. What are you doing right now in your life, in your professional life? Are you using both? And then what are some of the insights that you can get from that? Obviously, we'll talk about the importance of education, but if we look to, say what you're doing, Heath, because I know you have quite an extensive, in-depth training program in your locations.
Right.
And then Lupe, you go in on site to do classes. So if we could just kind of talk about that, how those two are working together and maybe how that hybrid has come about as well.
Yeah, I would love to start, and I'll be really quick. As an instructor, teach a lot of business systems, a lot of structure in the network, in the industry. I mean, but I would probably represent a lot of instructors and a lot of participants that would say we're kind of at a place where we have virtual fatigue, right? Zoom fatigue. So I would really stress that education is the lowest hanging fruit to salon engagement. If you want to inspire your team, if you want to get morale up, if you want to get people super excited to come to work, that is probably the place that you could spend the smallest amount of money and get the biggest return from your team. So we were going crazy 4 months into the pandemic, 5 months, and I looked at my partners and I said, we have got to have a live class. So we had our first live class September of 2020. Now I realize I represent the Southern US, which is there's a lot of renegades down here. And so we had the political and local ability to do that. And we could host classes. We took up one of the cosmetology schools and spread the team out. But it was almost night and day the moment we were able to get our team together without clients. and we could be on the same page, learning something new and being inspired. They skipped to work the next day. It was like all of this crazy COVIDness kind of went away. So I think we're going to find ourselves in 2022 as a combination of both, probably like a 60-40. There's still a place for virtual, especially where you have to travel long distances. But I'm going to try and make sure that the lion's share of our education is all in person and live as much as we could possibly do that, because we get the best response. I'll tell you a quick funny story. I was doing a Zoom class, I don't know, a few dozen people, and I just clicked the view screen where everyone popped up in tiles. And no kidding, I took a screenshot of it. I have a woman attending my class laying by her pool with one of those mirrored things like under her neck, shining light up in a bikini. And I'm like, why am I working so hard?
Yeah,
give me a margarita. But that's the kind of culture virtual does allow, you know.
Yeah,
some people, you might get 100% of the people show up, but really only 10% are there. So if we want effective communication, I think in person is also probably really important.
I have a quick funny one. I did a sales demo about a year ago, and the camera was off with the people, and it's always a bit odd when it's just you with your camera on and you're talking to their name. But I guess I decided to turn the camera back on, and it was they were in bed. They took the entire sales call while in bed. So yeah, I totally get what you mean. There's a different level of professionalism and attention sometimes over virtual meetings. But Lupe, we had talked a little while ago, last Friday, just about how we've taken classes. So you've got a lot of background doing in-salon classes. And then you've pivoted and you do a lot of things on hairbrains. You do a lot of virtual classes as well. How is that working for you? Like, how is it that you're able to do that and still get when you're doing a virtual class, I mean, participation, engagement, and then understanding and that they are taking in the information you're delivering and getting it?
I have to give credit to Janine O'Neill Blackwell, rest her soul. I was trained by Janine on format learning. And if I could challenge anybody that's on this call, look up format learning. And this is something that when I had the salon and I did have my education program, the minute that we hired someone, we would give them a learner test to understand where they learn. We all have different learner types. And in this particular information, there's 4 different ones. And this is how we would address them. So I really studied on all of Janine's information, and I took a lot of classes with her. She mentored me for the last 15 years of me knowing her. And the last classes that I had taken with her were virtual because she had the foresight to see 8 years ago, virtual training is something that is easy to use. She never said that it would be our only outlet of education, but I learned how to teach through virtually, the interaction between it. If you find someone who is really great at virtual training, it would be one aspect that you can share with your team in the salon. How we use it in color space with our salons currently, we have virtual. Then we have a second part of virtual where we have a Q&A, like right now our platform in Zoom. And then we take the next step as to what Heath was saying in salon, if they feel comfortable. There's some people that feel comfortable, there's some that don't. And if they don't, we set it up to where we can see them virtually. Technically, you have to really be there to technically assess what's happening. Yep. There are ways that we've done it through virtual, but I will say there is a way of getting all the virtual put together. Everything that we've done as far as hairbrain, I've done series with hairbrain, that's all cataloged. All of our team every Monday, they do a Instagram TV on the Color Space Instagram. That's all cataloged. So that's given to the salons, and we have the salons, it's labeled advanced, fundamental, like intermediate, and they can grab whatever they want to help share with their team. And then they can do a hands-on segment with that. So virtual can be used alone and it be used to train the team, or you can use it along with the hands-on. So I do believe if you find someone who has been trained properly virtually, yes, they can be engaged into the information, like even if it's like everyone right now, if you put on your, like go to your participants and type in, we have breakout rooms, we have sessions where each person is like focused on individually. So there's a way of doing virtual and it be successful, but I do believe that the hands-on segment, we're crafts people, so it is a craft. So it's something that we have to do hands-on. So I do think that eventually the hands-on has to be brought back.
And what are you seeing now? If you look over since 2020, when, obviously business dropped off for doing classes, what kind of uptick are you seeing? Are you seeing, is your virtual business growing quite a bit? And then are you now pivoting that virtual group and then starting to do more in salon classes again? What does that look like for 2022?
For 2022, we are going to be doing more in salon. Yes, everyone is feeling a bit more comfortable. I do believe that, for a style, you're craftspeople. So that you getting your hands in the hair for sure and seeing the end result. We'll talk about the trends as well in a bit, but it's important to see what it is that you're doing and practice it for sure. So yes, both virtual and I do see the hands-on. And I think we are going to pivot into doing both, doing some pre-work and then going into the hands-on, again, going back to being deliberate of this is our time that we have. We don't have that much time to play around. This is it. Yeah.
Well, and Mike, I'm curious, Lupe, the threshold for yes, virtual seems to be the first option that people will say yes to so quickly because they can be by their pool in a bikini or in their bed.
Margaritas,
but the live education was a bit more of a sell because you have to really make sure that they feel like they're going to be taken care of and be safe. And if anything, I think for 2022, the Omicron, while it's not generally impacting the lungs and the illnesses and the hospitals and, a lot of that, people are getting Omicron, it's a day or 2 days and they're back up and going. The silver lining in that is it's taken a lot of the air out of the scare of it, because when at the end of January, February, we're going to all know, if we haven't had Omicron ourselves, pretty much 90% of our circle will have. So I think it's going to teach us a lesson of we can do both. It's not an and or.
Yes.
So we will be able to be operating and going to classes and going as much about our normal life as we can, because we figured out how to do that. I'm sorry.
And I think I'll just add on to what Heath just said. I mean, the reality is we're having an all-team meeting tomorrow, right? And because we have 2 locations, because of the variant, we've decided to not do the 2 together. So we're flip-flopping, technical in the morning in one, kicking off the year in the other, then flip. Everybody's doing a COVID test before we get started, and we provided KN95 masks. So, and again, I'm in Brooklyn, New York, so we love restrictions and things you have to do. So in fact, any business over 1 employee, you have to be vaccinated or you can't work there. So, but the reality is, again, whatever your landscape is, whatever the safety reality that you feel comfortable in for your business, how do you keep doing what you need to do in this environment, but maintain that level of safety? Right. We're taping the floor when we do lunch so people stay 6 feet apart. Right. So, it is what it is, but we can just have an amazing day together. And if there's just a couple hoops we have to go through to have an amazing day together, I'm in.
Let's do it.
Right. That's great. I don't want to cut our last topic short because it's a really important one, but we're probably going to have to spend just maybe 5 minutes on that, just looking at that. I'm sure there'll be a couple of Q&As, and this is really great information that we're sharing. So I just wanted to expand on that virtual side of things, and then look at some of the tools that we're using specifically around consultations. And I know, Heath, you brought that up at the beginning of the call. And what first thing popped to my mind was, if we're allowing our team to do virtual consultations, how are we making sure that they're looking professional, they're done professionally? How are you monitoring them? What sort of environment are you setting up in your salon to do these virtual consultations? Are some of them being done at home with the hairdresser? So if you could, and I'm just going to start with you, Heath, if you could sort of let us look at how your consultation works in your salon, and then how it works when you add that virtual component with it as well.
Yeah, sure thing. So this is, I didn't know you were going to ask that, but I created this background for our team. And in each location, we have a dedicated, one is an iMac, which works great. It's kind of the best because of the height of the camera. And the other location, just because logistically the facility doesn't have a really private space, they would have to use the salon director's office. We use an iPad. And so we created this background to kind of get rid of all of the clutter that's in every non-client area in every salon in the world. So they have to use the background. They have a script. We've got that recorded to Lupe's point, so they can refresh how to do a virtual consultation by just watching a quick video. And there's a consultation form that one for hair color, one for hair cutting, and all of those are sitting right next to where those consultations will happen. And then we record them, which is an amazing plus, because if the stylist is kind of foggy on what they decided and they can't understand their notes, they can go back and watch their session. So that's how we set it up. And at the point of booking, we will book the consultation automatically with every new client, and any client that hasn't been in 6 months, they all get virtual consultations. We schedule in the point of sale system, and then we flip over to Zoom and we book it, book the consultation setting for virtual, send it to the guest, and book the virtual on the schedule as well. It's super seamless now. I'm so thankful that customers have embraced virtual technology, because it's saving us so much time and inefficiency.
And do you feel that your consultations are better now that you're doing them remote, that they are record, like all the things that you've just mentioned? Do you feel that the quality of the consultation is better?
Yeah, I do.
What maybe done more consistently?
Well, what happens in the salon environment, physically, when a consultation happens in the salon environment, one of two things are happening. The clients either come in for a special visit for that consultation, but the stylist is sitting there looking at their next client in the waiting room. And so they're kind of rushing it anyway. Or it's put at the head or the top of an actual appointment where now they feel the pressure to get started. So the virtual really slowed that down. It got them out of the service area, so they don't know that their next client is here. They're able to be one-on-one with the guest virtually without any distractions. And I do think that has increased the quality of the communication 100-fold. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And we do the same thing. I would totally agree. And I think, to Heath's point, when you take away everything I'm used to as a hairdresser, right? Mm-hmm. I can touch you, I can chit chat with you, I can play with your hair, all that stuff that happened in the chair. And now I'm on a screen. I have to be prepared.
Yes.
Or I'm not comfortable, right? So now they come in armed with good questions. They've looked at the client's history if it is a client that hasn't been there in 6 months. We also use a tool called, and I might get it backwards, I think it's snip, or it's snip, but it's something like that.
Snip, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Snip.
I don't know, I always get it one way or the other. And what's nice is they can send a lot of the stuff in. So now we have some pictures and images to kind of go with that process. Yeah. And I just feel like when they're armed and loaded and there's nothing that makes them comfortable, because Zoom doesn't make them comfortable, right? Around them, they come ready to go. And I joke with one of our stylists, Lisa, she got done with one of her virtual consultations and she's like, she sold the woman like 3 treatments. And I'm like, she's doing a scalp facial, she's doing a Bond Pro, and then she's going to do a renewal remedies at the end. And I'm like, yes, just because, she got to really listen and look for opportunities, and, she loves the treatment. So
that's fantastic. That's great. Okay, so we're going to move to questions. Lupe, do you want to add to that? Is there anything you want to comment on the consultation?
No, I think the only thing that as a trainer, as an educator, I think the consultation questions are pretty standard. Do you guys agree that what is it that you're looking for? What is your inspiration picture? I think a challenge that I would have all the salon owners is to create some class or find a class on communication skills and learning communication cues to help with making sure that, you can ask the question, but if you're not understanding or if it's not clear, how could you keep going? The difference between a close-ended and open-ended question, that would be one thing that would be great for you guys to add to your education pieces for consultation. Because our questions are our questions, but really understanding and learning how to listen is super important.
Yeah, that's great. And and to Heath's point about the recorded calls, if everybody knows that they're on a call and it's being recorded and it can be reviewed by management, the accountability goes up. So I think the thoroughness of the consultation is definitely benefiting that. Well, I'm really excited. This has been great. And I think that we could probably do this for another hour and keep talking. There's so many more topics that I know we could all discuss and we like to share and we're passionate about. One thing I want to do is Allison was very generous and she offered a prize to give away during this webinar. And the prize is 4 months of consulting with Allyson and 360 Beauty Consulting. So we picked a winner and it's Katarina Young. So congratulations. We'll get in touch with you after this. And very excited to have Allyson. What a great prize. So I just want to,
Katarina.
I want to just start or end by saying thank you so much to everybody here today. I really enjoyed this. I think the topics we covered were brilliant. And I think I think it's a great benefit to our salons. And I know there's a lot of people who couldn't attend that we'll be sharing this out with as well. But if anybody has any questions, we've got another, a few minutes that we have open. So if there's anything that you want to know, if there's anything that you wanted us to go over, some of the topics that we covered, feel free to raise your hand and ask a question, and I'll read them out and answer them as we can. And just in the meantime, again, I'm gonna go back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, and just are you seeing in your salons? And this is a question for everybody: was there a big drop in 2021 in education? And do you have plans to implement more education in your businesses now? Like what does that 2022 landscape look like? Because I know, with salons that I meet with, their teams are taxed. They're really busy. The restrictions are gone. So, but they're working a lot. And there's also, I think, coming out of being at home for a while and maybe not working full when we had the 50% capacity restrictions, is that some of our teams didn't want to work as hard as they did in the past. Yeah. So how are you combating that? What are you doing differently? And how does education play a role in that?
Can I say that it was a little bit of pressure from both sides. It was a pressure from the attendees. Yes, it was really easy to live your world in sweatpants and Uggs, right? And they were really resistant to coming back into the environment as much. But also what we were finding for 2021 is a lot of corporate entities, a lot of the manufacturers and distributors that employ a lot of the instructors still weren't reporting to offices themselves and didn't want their instructors out in the field actually getting on planes and being in public spaces. So as that starts to open up more, I think there will be a lot more yeses from both sides. So there are a lot more options for great instructors to fly them across the country without so much hassle trying to figure out how we'll do that. And then also, I think, I don't know about a lot of salons, a network that I follow, my gosh, anything that canceled in December client-wise immediately got filled. And now the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of January of a new year, which is usually a little quieter, has not been quiet. It's just been busy, busy, busy. So I think that our teams are rolling right now. We've got a lot of momentum in the salon world. And I think if we can meet that kind of excitement with the right education, I think we're going to be set up for an amazing year.
Great. Fantastic. Lupe, Allison, anything you want to comment there on education for 2022 and motivating your teams?
We have a team of 18 trainers, and we were traveling. We did have, to Allison's point, we did have guidelines that we made sure that the team and the ones that were comfortable traveling were the ones that traveled. And we really made sure that they were comfortable of where they were going, and the environment understood what the guidelines were for them. And we were out there, and it was a great year for us for our first year of a new company.
Awesome.
So we made sure that like I said, that they were safe and that the guidelines were being met. Yeah.
Well, and I think the only thing that I would say in closing is we've got to get off our heels and get back on our toes, right? Agreed. The reality is we're going to be living with whatever we're dealing with for a period of time. We already know how to pivot, backflip, spin around, you name it. We learned it the last 2 years. So you know what? Put a plan together. Find 1 or 2 things that you want to focus on and do it. Yeah. And just figure out the safest way to make it happen for yourself and for your teams. Because the reality is it's time to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Great words. Great closing, Allison. Thank you. Well, I appreciate you all. I love you all. This has been fantastic. I've enjoyed it so much. I'm really happy that, virtually we all get in the same room. So let's just plan to have a great 2022. We've got some really exciting things coming out with Vish this year, so stay tuned. You're going to see a lot of improvements, enhancements, and some positive steps forward. Again, thank you, Heath. Thank you, Lupe. Thank you, Allison. I truly appreciate you, your leadership and your brilliant ways. And Lupe, I'm really looking forward to reading your thesis. So please share that, and we'll share that out.
I'll send it to you guys.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.